What a treat to be here today, and thank you all for joining me. I am so excited to talk today about no code, no limits. How many of you here are familiar with the term no code? Awesome, about half of us. How many of us have used no code tools before? Tools that are considered no code tools. Awesome. This is very exciting. For those of you who have, I'm thrilled that you're here to join us, and for those of you who haven't, you'll be in for what I think is going to be a real treat. So today, as we said, it's no code, no limits, and we're here to talk about empowering the future with AI and no code. No code is also a term used to describe visual development. How many of you have used or seen blocks-based visual development before? Lego, Mindstorm, Scratch, things like that. All right, cool. So no code is a term used to describe that. Just because it's no code doesn't mean it's no logic. It's no code means you don't have to worry about your semicolon and your tab and things like that. So let's hop right in. First of all, I'd love to just tell you a bit about myself. My name is Arun Saigal, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Thunkable. Thunkable is a no-code or visual development platform to build native iOS, Android, and web apps. I did my undergrad and graduate research at MIT in AI, where I focused on how do you think about AI and visual development together. So again, how many folks here have used Scratch? Raise your hand, specifically Scratch. Cool. How many have used a thing called App Inventor? All right, a couple. How many have used Thunkable? And again, another couple. Awesome. So the backstory for folks who know about any of these things. I started at MIT, and I loved Lego, so I said I'm going to join the Lego Learning Lab. And in the Lego Learning Lab, we were building the future of development. So started working on this thing that was my freshman research called Scratch. And it was these visual blocks that we said, wouldn't it be cool if kids could learn how to code with visual blocks so they don't have to worry about their semicolon. I remember the first time I learned to code, I was learning Java, and I spent a couple days. First, I downloaded an IDE. I had to learn what an IDE was, Integrated Development Environment. I download it. Then what? I have to get all these plugins. So I get all these different plugins. About after 3 days, I get to type system.out.println hello world, right? And I've been building up my whole life for this, or at least for 3 days. And I hit run. And what happens? From here, hello world, prints here, hello world. And on one hand, it was very satisfying because my teacher told me, you should be so proud of yourself. You just did something. And I was like, copy and paste would let me go from here to here. I don't understand. And so there were a couple things that I walked away from with that. One was, why am I spending so much time learning about where my semicolon goes and where my bracket goes, and if I need 2 spaces or 4 spaces for the tab? That's not teaching me programming. That's a lot of semantics. And so I said, how can we make it easy to do visual development and not have to worry about that? And that was where the block-based coding came from. The second piece was, wow, this is not very exciting when after doing all of this, I get to system.out.println over here. And then I spent a whole semester building something in a Java Swing GUI, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, and basically came out with this app that I was never going to use again. So I also said, hey, I want to make sure that when we're building apps, when we're building things, we can actually build something real, something you can touch, something you can feel, something you can share, something that you're proud of. And so a lot of my research focused on how do you build visual development tools and how do you use AI to enable a lot of this. Now, you may guess by the gray hairs that I did graduate before November of 2022, which is when everyone started talking about AI and generative AI. But of course, AI has been around for a long time before that. A lot of things, speech to text, text to speech, image recognition. Every time Amazon tells you, hey, you should really buy this thing, and then you do even though you don't want to. That, all of course, AI. Now, I'll get more into all that in a moment, but to finish about myself, I've always been passionate about democratizing technology. But I think this bullet point is important to highlight because many folks here are talking about very important things, democratizing access to technology. Incredibly important, making sure we have devices, we have broadband, things like that. But for me, it was never just about access. It was about technology creation. See, there are many folks at this conference who have been talking about, hey, they're the people who are going to be building the AIs and people who are going to be run by the AIs. And in my mind, if you are not a creator of the technology, you will fall behind. And so we'll talk today not just about using ChatGPT in the classroom, which is fun and awesome and important, but how are you actually creating apps using ChatGPT? How are you actually creating with these AIs? Because democratization of technology is not just about access, it's about democratizing creation of technology. Lastly, I'm also a symphony conductor and a rapper. I share this only to ask, did any of you go to the AIR Show? Cool, I see a few hands. Did any of you see me rap at the AIR Show? All right, there's a couple hands. That was, it's only relevant, you know, this is one of those things where they said, hey, come give a nice keynote talk at the AIR Show, and then Monday morning, can you give a freestyle rap? So they put a bunch of words on stage and made me rap about it. We'll see at the end if we want to do that, but that's not part of this. But the other reason I highlight that, in addition to saying that the AIR Show was fun, was because I think one of the things that becomes more important, and we'll hit on this theme, is that creativity is king. What AI allows for is for everyone to be a programmer, which means it's no longer about who understands where the semicolon goes. Instead, it's about who actually has the best idea. And that's something that I think is incredibly important and something that we need to focus on in our classrooms today. So a couple photos. You know, I got started, as I said, 15 years ago at MIT working on Scratch, focusing on block-based programming, and many of you are familiar with that. From there, we built App Inventor, which was Scratch to build mobile apps. And from App Inventor, we made Thunkable. And Thunkable was the visual development tool for learners of any age to build iOS, Android, and web apps. Back then, our mission was to provide a visual-based programming language that would help students learn the key concepts of programming without getting stuck in the semantics. So you can see this photo on the left. I was very interested in neuroscience and how people are thinking and learning, and I plugged myself into a lot of funny things and tried to test my brain, and that was kind of where it started. And then eventually we decided, hey, we'll build a company, and that's a small picture of myself and my co-founder, Wei, when we just had decided to start building Thunkable to take this vision out of the classroom and bring it to the world. Now, how many of you, I asked about general using these products, how many of you ever built any app? An app in Excel, an app in anything at all, right? All right, that's most people. And I think what's cool about building apps is, one, you can think about how long it took you to do the first time, and that's always a challenge. But two, I'm assuming that as soon as you did that, you felt empowered. You said, hey, I can do this. Right? I feel like so many times I talk to folks who say, I can't build, I'm not an engineer. And I'm like, but try using one of these tools. They're no code. And they're like, but I haven't learned this stuff. And that's not an excuse anymore. The world is going to be a world where everyone has to be a creator. Everyone has to be a developer. And so we have to embrace technology. And that's the goal of things like Thunkable, is to go and take the actual coding, remove that, and keep people's passions and knowledge and excitement. One of the most fun things about taking Thunkable in the classroom is we see teachers who get concerned. And then we see every student comes in and they just start building and they start playing, right? They don't have this concept of I can't. They're like, I have an idea. This seems like a way to do it. Cool, right? Students today are growing up with Wi-Fi all around them. They're like, of course internet is everywhere, right? That's still so cool to me when I just connect my phone to Wi-Fi and I have access to everything. Like, I still get mind blown by that. Students today are like, of course, that's how the world works, right? And turns out, if you were born before 1992, you know that the www wasn't always a thing, right? It's pretty mind-blowing, but it's all pretty new, and it's very exciting. So that brings us to today. Many of you will probably recognize this quote from Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, right? He gave this big talk recently, and I think I have the whole quote, something to the extent of, he said, you probably recall over the last 10 to 15 years, almost everybody who sits on a stage like this will tell you that you need to learn computer science, and you need to tell your children to learn computer science, and everyone needs to learn how to program. But now it's almost the exact opposite. It's our job to create computing technology so that nobody has to program, and that the programming language is human, right? So that it's all conversational. Everybody in the world is now a programmer. This is the miracle. This is the miracle of artificial intelligence. For the very first time, we have closed the gap. The technology divide has been completely closed. This is Jensen Huang's statement. You can agree or disagree there, but I think the sentiment behind that is really big, right? Is that no longer is it about the haves and have-nots, which are the engineers in their ivory tower and everybody else, right? Everybody is now that engineer in the ivory tower. When I started working on AI, we had some ideas about how it would manifest in our everyday lives. And today, we're seeing that future play out. From the boardroom to the classroom, AI is here. And it's only going to become more prevalent as technology companies are building their products foundations around AI. Every company that you've seen here, every company in the expo, what are they saying? We are this with AI, right? That is what everyone is saying now, because AI is now, it's not the end all. It's not, hey, are you doing a generative AI thing? It's, hey, it's a tool in your toolbox that you're using to enable the vision in the future that you're trying to build. I remember a teacher telling us back in the day that we had to learn math because we couldn't carry calculators at all time. I remember my first TI, 83, then I got the 89. I felt like the coolest person, right? You could write all kinds of things and play games on it. And so I was told, you're not gonna have a calculator all the time, so you need to learn math. Now we got calculators in our pockets, we have chatbots, we have instruction manuals, we can build our own custom GPTs with any PDF that we have, feed it in, boom, now you have an instruction manual that can tell you anything you wanna do. So the question is, how do you prepare the next generation for an uncertain future? The first step is embracing it. So how do you embrace the evolving future of AI in the classroom? And again, I'm not talking about consuming AI tools. We do enough of that every day: Instagram, LinkedIn, e-commerce apps, so on and so forth. Here, a lot of what you're hearing about is about consuming AI tools. Very important, wonderful, but that's baseline. That's where we're starting. I'm talking about creating the future of digital technologies. If we want our students to become the entrepreneurs and leaders of tomorrow, we need to focus on embracing AI today, and there are 3 ways to get started. First off, awareness. Most of the students today are probably aware of popular AI tools, but we should open the door further, kick it down if we must. We need to show students what AI is available and how it's being used in the world. It's about broadening their understanding of AI's applications in the world to get started on the slow burn of curiosity, right? I'm sure many students that you've worked with that you know, they're all using ChatGPTs already to make their essays and asking everything. Just like I remember when I first started using Google and I was like, I have this cheat code. I can just use Google to find anything on the internet. It's so cool, right? They have that now with ChatGPT. I was talking to actually a teacher yesterday, and they were telling me it was cool. They said they had a couple months where their students had learned about ChatGPT from TikTok and didn't know that the teachers knew about it. And so they were secretly using it. And the teacher was like, hey, I think you might have used ChatGPT for this. And they were like, and the students, how did you know? Are you guys on TikTok too? And they were like, no, turns out it's a pretty popular thing. But it's, there's already a lot of awareness, but it's not something that you need to hide. It's something that you should embrace. You need to make awareness, again, not just of ChatGPT, but of image recognition and speech to text and text to speech and language translations and everything that is AI, getting awareness of that. Which leads to the second part, of course, availability. Getting students hands-on with available AI tools. Let them see how they can build with AI. And in the right settings and with the right guidance, let them see how to embrace AI. And I said, in the right settings with the right guidance, right? When students get introduced to a tool, when anyone gets introduced to a tool, often the way they think the tool works is how they get introduced to it. So if you introduce it to them in the right setting and show them the right ways, and again, that's a charged word, so we won't debate that here, but the right ways or good ways to use these AI tools, then that'll open up their minds, right? For many, AI sounds like a scary word, right? It's the bots, they're taking over. But we should be encouraging experimentation from early days so that the curiosity continues to grow and to be fostered. And lastly, this leads us to the most important part here, creativity. When know-how meets creativity, that's where goodness happens. Where know-how meets creativity, that is where goodness happens. Our job as educators is not just to teach facts, but it's to encourage students to learn how to learn. Right, in this ever-changing world, right, by the time I learned any programming I did in college and I graduated, every programming language I learned was kind of obsolete and irrelevant. Right, it's no longer about learning specific facts and things that you're going to take forward with you because many of them will become obsolete. It's about learning how to learn. And students are most excited when they can just freely explore with passionate pursuits. So we should be encouraging creativity when it comes to AI education. With an uncertain future, it may look like a student is using DALL-E to generate hundreds of different pictures of their favorite athlete or dream vacation, but they're also learning how to learn, subtly becoming better and better prompt engineers, engaging with AI systems to deliver the right tweaks and edits to the photo. This is one of the fun things that I love about what we've added in Thunkable. Now you can just image generate. So now a lot of the tedious work of going to Google, downloading an image, looking up the license, for those who do, and then saying, wrong license, let me type in free photo and then get the MIT license or the Creative Commons license, whatever. Now you go in and you just generate an image and you can not be worrying about all these other things. Focus on the things that are most exciting and most important, which is the creativity. Now, today, computer science education should be focusing on creativity. And this is happening now, where a lot of folks are realizing, and I think if you look at maybe the AP exams, right? It started, you had AP C++, some of you may have taken that. Then it converted over to AP Java, where you were handwriting a bunch of code. I remember taking that exam and wondering why I was doing that. And now there's AP CS principles, where they realize, shoot, we can't keep updating the programming language that we use because by the time we finish it, it's already outdated. Let's just make it where you have to learn CS principles. You have to learn computational thinking and logic, right? And Thunkable works with hundreds of thousands of students and in many thousands of schools. And I get to go see firsthand how students approach learning computer science. Thunkable is a visual development tool, as I said, and we can be used to teach CS principles with block-based programming. And what's cool about using block-based programming is they have the unique approach of teaching core concepts without worrying about your syntax and things like that. And where we need to make the shift in CS education is to make sure that it is focused really on creativity and on ideas. And it's not just about opening the door to creativity. It's about providing accessibility to interesting and scary technologies like AI within a low-risk controlled environment. And no-code visual development platforms can be that environment within the classroom so that students can freely explore how to interact with AI and how to prepare for their future and how they can incorporate AI into their app ideas, how the future of digital creation will play out. CS education shouldn't focus on the how-tos of programming today. It needs to empower creativity. So with that, I'll actually give you an example of an app that I recently saw and I liked. This is from a student who we knew in France, Camille Hackett. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but we'll go with that. Camille is a 17-year-old French student and is incredibly passionate about biking. He loved the freedom biking gives you, and so he was also big on, hey, it's good for your health, good for the environment, all the good things that you want a high schooler thinking. And Camille was introduced to no-code app development in his high school's Intro to Computer Science class. Camille then heard about a competition that was being sponsored by the Union of Technical and Industrial Science Workers and the Ministry of Education. And they were granting a scholarship. And being excited about what he knew and being excited about scholarships, Camille was like, I should go win the scholarship. Found a team and decided to compete. This entrepreneurial program was based around what technology could be created for the betterment of society. Equipped with his knowledge of Thunkable, his passion for biking, and his hard-working ethic, Camille got to work with the team. And they created Bikey, which is an app that tracks the usage of your bike and shares it with your healthcare provider. And it helps you reduce your costs. So interesting, so the more you bike, the more this is shared with the healthcare provider. The healthcare provider, well, they'll give you credits or bonus points for your exercise and actually reduce your healthcare costs. The Bikey team goes on to win the competition. Camille gets a huge scholarship. He's now pursuing computer science full-time in college. What's cool about this, though, is it wasn't about, hey, I'm a computer scientist, I know how to build, so I'm going to go solve this. It was, hey, there's something that I want to do, there's a problem I have this idea, I have tools to build it, cool. I have a phone, let me call some insurance companies and see if they'd get behind this. I have access to friends, let's see if we can design and work on this, right? And this was now another tool in Camille's tool set to go about and bring this idea to life. And that's something that's so exciting about these visual development tools, is you get to bring ideas to life. I always laugh, I live in San Francisco and we have, 10 different food delivery apps to deliver food immediately to my door when I need it. Awesome, I love that. Why? Because programmers in San Francisco say, hey, I have a problem. I need food at my door at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. But that isn't the only problem that exists. And by enabling and empowering folks with access to tools, now all of a sudden, we can be solving other problems, other important problems, not just food at my doorstep, which is important, but maybe also an app to reduce food waste, so on and so forth. So awareness and availability open the door to creativity, and that is the most important skill for the developers of tomorrow. Right? Traditional programming courses were all about the how to do something. Learning specific languages like Python or JavaScript or Java, that was what we focused on. Hey, you need to know Java and you need to know where the bracket goes. But if in the future we're all programmers, then what good will that solve us, knowing this specific programming language? Doesn't matter anyway, we'll be competing against computer-generated code, right? So at the end of the day, it's not super important that we learn the specific language, but it is important that we know how to tweak code and edit code and things like that. At least as of right now, I haven't seen anything, I don't know if anyone has, where you can just type in, hey, give me an app that looks like this, and you get something perfect the first time, or the 15th time. Right? You get pretty close, and then you have to dig in there. And that's one of the reasons I love the future that is AI and visual development, AI and no code, where you can talk to a system like Thunkable and say, hey, give me an app that's like Uber, that's purple in color, that, Uber for dogs, that lets me do X, Y, and Z. And even if you get 30% or 50% of the app started, well, that's pretty good. And if you can take that and use that as your first draft, right? The first draft is always the hardest. But if you can take the first draft and then iterate on there with these tools, now that's awesome. And knowing how to interact with these tools, that's huge. And being creative, that's the key. If you have the skill set of being creative, and we encourage, coach, and enable that skill in you, we will have enabled the developer of tomorrow. Given AI's pace, we don't know what tomorrow will look like, much less the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but we do know that learning how to learn, how to explore and engage with AI and igniting passion will equip our students to take full advantage of the future. So I've been talking about blocks a lot, so just to give you a quick sense of that, and then we'll move forward. Right? What is this block-based thing? Right? It's like those visual blocks you can see right here. So on the left side, you see someone's actually typing code, and instead what you can see on the right side is you can fit some blocks together, and if they fit together, things compile. If they don't fit together, it won't work. Great. And then there's a designer, so you can actually design things. Right? So it becomes very fast, very easy, and with all this, you can also plug in any external things. Your kids use Google Spreadsheets, great. Plug in Google Spreadsheets to the back end. You want to use ChatGPT, great. Just plug in ChatGPT. With a few simple drag and drop blocks, your students can start becoming the developers of the future by learning how to leverage AI and build their apps and adding AI into their app experience. To give you a sense, and I'll talk about it more at the end, but we have about 4 million creators on the platform at this point who have built 10 million apps in 184 countries. So when I'm talking about all this, we've seen a lot of this, and we've seen it at quite a bit of scale. So now let's talk very specifically about the benefits of AI and no code. From my standpoint, there are 3 key benefits to this approach, using no code with AI. The first is what we call exploration without the waste. What do I mean by that? I've seen in CS programs, students spend a lot of time for the sake of building things. They build to build, as I talked about with my Hello World example. You're building to build, and what do? You spit out a bunch of stuff that you're never going to use again, right? And that's fine for instilling certain concepts, but if the assignment doesn't eventually resonate with the student, then they get bored of it, and then what's the point? They don't identify with it. They say it's too hard. They're no longer excited about it, right? So building with wasted time and wasted code is no good for anyone. The cost of a failed idea is so much less in no code compared to traditional programming because each function can be snapped together and reused from project to project, right? And in no code, what you can do is you can actually say, hey, I have this idea, I want to try it out. You know, to use Thunkable, for example, you go to thunkable.com, log in, get started. You can build an app end to end in 3 minutes and have it on your phone, not 3 days, right? And so all of a sudden, doing something that quickly and then seeing it live on your phone, being able to touch it, interact with it, so powerful, so strong, so exciting. And that's huge. Now, the second is making AI accessible as a developer. You can now, again, not just be a consumer of AI, but you can actually be a developer of AI. You can now access image recognition and then speech to text and then plug it into your ChatGPT. There's actually a fun example of a guy who built an app. He works as a guy who repairs scientific equipment. And he built an app that he takes a photo, he speech to text explains what's going on in the broken microscope or whatever. He built his own custom GPT that he shoved the instruction manuals into his own custom GPT, so it's trained on that, and then basically has a virtual assistant. And now he said what took about a week to repair equipment for 90% of his jobs now take about 3 hours, right? How incredible that is that he took image recognition, speech to text, text to speech, language translations, custom GPTs, and put it all together and built himself an incredibly powerful app. So that's what I mean when I talk about accessing AI available as a developer. Most folks are, most students are using ChatGPT to help them write essays, but how do we access ChatGPT APIs and build stuff with that? And finally, because, we're talking about computer science, we're talking about still how you're learning computer science, no code still teaches you key computer science concepts, right? Sequences, loops, and for loops, if and else, things like that. You're still learning computer science programs, so students can still grasp and build tangible and meaningful applications with the functional concepts that they need no matter where the future takes them. So now they actually are learning computer science and building real things. Thus, AI and no code, perfect match in education. So to give another example, how does this play out in the real world? One more example I'll give you here. I want to introduce you to Celestin Jaquim. Now, Celestin is a recent college grad that worked as an app lab apprentice at Safran. For those of you who don't know Safran, it's a giant company. I think they have, 92,000 employees. They're one of the biggest companies in the world. They manufacture single-aisle commercial jets, so they work with and jet engines, so a lot of what things like GE and Pratt & Whitney do for folks like Boeing and Airbus, et cetera, right? Giant company. So this guy gets a job at Safran, and he's in the app lab. So they have to go build apps to enable their manufacturing process. So a project came to his team, and his teammates had to help with assembly line maintenance. Right? There was a lot of things breaking down, and they only knew when something broke down. There was no early stage tracking to give them signals, and as soon as something breaks down on the manufacturing line, everything has to stop, right? It leads to crazy delays. And so Celestin was asked, hey, can we make this better? So he was like, okay, well, I learned to use Thunkable, and I think we could spend 6 months building this whole app, but I need some Bluetooth sensing, I need some offline capabilities, I need to be able to plug into my camera to do some image stuff. Well, this is all possible in a no-code tool like Thunkable, and then I want to be able to learn from the errors that we have when things are breaking down. I want to be able to learn from it. So what do? Well, I can have AI I have a bot in the background that as I'm doing all this stuff, I can learn from it. And so he figures that he can actually build an app, and the machines can be retrofitted to understand when materials are running low. It can communicate with the apps. And so before things are running out or before there are problems, they can get notifications because they have Bluetooth connectivity, so it can talk even when there's no Wi-Fi on the giant floor and actually give them results. He had some familiarity with programming, but actually when he got this job, he wasn't an expert in any programming language outside of block-based programming. He took his block-based programming, did the job in a fraction of the time that was allocated for him, and in the fraction of cost, and from idea to rollout was a matter of weeks. And it's stories like this that perfectly illustrate what the future looks like for the students of today. The future is limitless thanks to no code and AI. The developer of tomorrow is being built today. Just like Celestin, it's about exploring, learning how things work, using creativity to ignite a passion. And when it all comes together, magic will happen. In the future, there is no limits. There are 3 key things that I hope you're going to take away from my session today. They're all centered around unlocking the students' potential in the future, where AI might or will be writing code for them and be underlying a lot of what they do. First off, experimentation. Experimentation today should be encouraged. We don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what the future holds. But if we can encourage the exploration and experimentation with available no-code and AI tools, students will be equipped for whatever comes their way in the future. If AI predictions are right, we'll all be developers in the future. And every student who learns with no-code and with creating AI today will have a leg up because they'll know how to harness the power of AI and not just be passive consumers. They will become active creators. So start now. Get them going. Second, technology creation will be available to all. And this is something so important. Again, we talk a lot about technology access, which is huge. But we have to go a step further. It's about creating technology, and that will be accessible to all. Dovetailing off my previous point, this is why awareness and accessibility is so important. Just because we can't all be developers of the future doesn't mean we will be. It doesn't mean we will just by default know how to prompt AI systems or build basic structure of programs or tweak AI's output unless we invest today in making sure that all our students have accessibility to these technologies, to creating with these technologies, and are able to experiment. So let students explore today so they're ready to be developers, even if they don't pursue CS degrees, and especially if they don't pursue CS degrees. Right? If you're not pursuing a computer science degree, I gave a talk yesterday with the professor from the University of San Francisco who teaches history majors how to code using Thunkable. And what was so fascinating in the talk was he said, all of my students come in, most of them have failed out of 8th grade math or had one horrible math teacher, have never really written a line of code or done much math since about Algebra 2, 4 years ago. He's teaching freshman history majors. And the first app they build on the first day is build an app to have a conversation with Socrates. Incredible. And they're terrified of this. And they all build an app, and in one day, they have built a chat bot with voices. It has a, who knows what Socrates sounds like, but it has a voice that sounds like Socrates. And they build this app in one class, right? That's incredible because now the history majors aren't saying, hey, the engineering guys are going to build this. History majors are saying, cool, I can do this now. I can build this. I can now explore with my creative ideas. And I think especially as we look at computer science becoming something like arithmetic or something else where it's a basic subject, it's a basic expectation that everyone can build, right? It's incredibly important that we make sure technology creation is accessible to all. And lastly, AI is already impacting every element of our lives. From the boardrooms to the classrooms, to set your students up for the future, you need to encourage as much creativity as possible and let them roam, explore, and engage with topics that are interesting to them. Technology will meet them more than halfway. If they know how to use these available tools to pursue topics they're passionate about, that is going to set them and the world up for success. And that is why creativity is king. We need to focus on creativity. We need to make sure that no matter who you are and what you've studied, that you're encouraged to bring your ideas to life. Be creative. Think about the world, what if. How many people have heard or said, if only there was an app for that? Yeah, I'm seeing pretty much everyone's giving me a chuckle. Why didn't you build that app? Time, money, resources, concern that you didn't have the knowledge, the ability. That has to go away. If you are creative, if you have an idea, and if you say only if there was an X for that, you should be able to build that X. If only there was a bot for that, if only there was an app for that. We are enabling the future by making sure that people can not just say if only there was an app for that, but they can build that app. And so we need to make sure that creativity is king. Again, why I love taking Thunkable to the classrooms is when I sit with kids, they say, oh, this is so awesome, I can do all these things. When I ask adults, hey, what do you want to build? They're like, I don't really know. Why? Because a lot of times that creativity has been stifled. But we have the ability to encourage and foster that creativity because creativity is king, and that is so important. So to recap, 1, experimentation, huge. 2, technology creation will be accessible to all. And it's important that you make sure anybody you're working with, any schools, any faculty, etc., have access to technology creation. And no-code tools are the fastest, easiest ways to get them that access. And 3, creativity is king. We have to focus, encourage, and foster creativity. In that quote I gave you from the CEO of NVIDIA earlier, one of the comments he made was that creativity is king. And now to bring it back to when I was rapping yesterday, one of the things that people really liked and enjoyed was that I didn't have anything pre-written. It was the original ChatGPT, right? We had some words on the screen, and I took them and I was able to turn it into something real time. And people loved it. They bonded over that. They were excited about that. Why? Because creativity is something that gets people going now. It's hard to say, hey, here's this, trite thing that's being done, and a bot can do this. Like, okay, what's cool about that? But when you're getting up there and freestyle rapping, people are like, wow, I saw you just do this real time, right? It's something that bonds us. Humans are now having to think ever more about what it means to be human and how to be creative, and that's something so, so important. So now I'll just give you the last couple minutes. Why start with Thunkable or any visual development tool? Why use any no-code platform? What is the value? There's a few pieces. 1, cross-platform. At this point, everyone's on every device. I'm seeing photos coming out, iPhones, Androids, tablets. People have their web browsers. They have their cool whatever. It's amazing how many different devices we have. And when we started building these various block-based programming tools, we focused on one platform. First, we were, with App Inventor, we were Android only. Great, but what about the people with iPhones? What about the people with tablets? Things like that. If you can be cross-platform, now in any bring-your-own-device situation, you can actually work with that. And most importantly, anyone who's building can build on the device of their choosing, which means they can actually identify with it and say, this is something for me. They can look at a phone and say, hey, I built this app, and this is on my phone that I use. I can take it and publish it to the app stores, to the Google Play Store, and send it to my mom and send it to my friends. Oh, and I can put ads in it and make money off of it. That is incredibly empowering when you have something that can work where you live, right? Embedded AI. We have an AI embedded in every piece, right? Again, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, image recognition, you name it, translations, chatbots, OpenAI, whatever you want to integrate with, any of these AI systems you want to integrate with, you can do that with Thunkable, and that's incredibly empowering. Easy sharing. This is key. After you build, you don't just have Hello World in your console. You can actually share it. It's on your phone. It's on the app stores. We make it super easy to publish, to share, etc. You can launch it to the web in 15 seconds. It's incredible. Live testing. This is one of those pieces that still is pretty mind-blowing. How many of you have built a mobile app before? Oh, okay, a few folks. So this may resonate. When I was running a mobile app team for a while, if anybody here has used Quizlet, I ran the mobile teams there. And what was interesting is anytime I wanted to change the color blue, it would take me 15 minutes to reinstall the app and see if I liked it. If I didn't, I'd have to fix it. Now you can actually build and in real time see updates on your phone. So you can actually test live. One of the most powerful things, or within your browser, you can actually see these updates live, test it, make sure it works. And I'm not just saying change the colors. You can change the code, the logic, and see these updates in real time. Next is blocks. We've talked a lot about blocks. We did a lot of research, and I can point to a bunch of papers we wrote on why blocks-based visual programming is the easiest and most exciting way to learn. But it probably makes sense to a lot of you. If you were kids or had kids or new kids, anybody know a kid? Cool. If you did, who you gave a set of Legos to, you didn't have to tell them how to build the Legos. Why? Because blocks make sense. If you put the Legos together and they stick, it works. If you put the Legos side by side and they don't stick, it doesn't work, right? Blocks is something that we've built for centuries, right? Bricks, they put together. We know how to do blocks. Humans are good at blocks. So blocks-based programming, very good. And lastly, collaboration. These tools are built for collaboration, to make it easy to talk to one another, to make it easy for me to share my project with you, you to share with me to remix, me to take a piece of my project here and put it in another place, and that's incredibly empowering. As I told you earlier, since our inception in 2016, there have been more than 10 million apps created by 4 million users in 184 countries. These are with learners from all over the world, and we're in over 10,000 classrooms. And so if you have learners who need to build, right? We have the tool just for them. And like I said, it's lifelong learning. It's in some 40% of the Fortune 500, things like that. So it's very exciting. With that, I think we're just getting to time, so I'll leave you with this. The future will be built by those with experience and creativity. And it's up to us to start today. With that, I will wrap up here. If you have any questions, feel free to come find me after. And if you want to get started, please head to thunkable.com or call me, email us, whatever you need. I'm very findable on the internet. My name's Arun Saigal, and I'm from Thunkable. Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you enjoyed this. Enjoy the rest of the summit.